6 in his stockinged feet, Archie Hamilton has the impeccable pedigree of a Tory grandee. An MP in the Surrey stockbroker belt, he added to the knighthood another title this week, becoming chairman of the 1922 committee of all Tory MPs. The crucial factor in the election were his views on the method for choosing a new Tory leader. By electing him, the 160 or so Tory survivors at Westminster set their face against a rule change to give the grassroots a say in the current contest. Reform will have to wait, but many activists are very unhappy, as our political correspondent Jonathan Beale reports.
Let me do his picture. Let me do his picture.
The Tories showed some signs of regrouping after their election rout. It was hello to the team which will represent the views of all Tory MPs and oversee the choice of a new party leader. But with the election of Sir Archie Hamilton as the new chairman of the 1922 committee, it was also goodbye to any chance of activists being involved in the leadership contest, at least for this time.
I don't have to tell you about the problems that leadership campaigns bring, namely that you get a lot of infighting and so forth that inevitably goes on, and I don't think that does the party any good. I think there's a very strong feeling in the party at the moment. We want to get on with this leadership campaign and get a new leader behind we can all unite and get into the serious business of opposition in this parliament.
Sir Archie Hamilton, Eton and the Guards before he became MP for Epsom and Ewell, has opted to keep with tradition. However, he hasn't turned his back on a review to widen the franchise at a later date, a move welcomed by grassroots activists, but they may still carry out their own survey as to who should lead the party.
I'm sorry that we couldn't persuade enough members of Parliament. Clearly quite a lot thought it was right, but not enough did to make the change on this occasion. But as I've always said, it is the 1922 committee's decision. It is their election. And in the end, they have to make that decision and they have to decide what signal they wish to send as a result of that decision.
William Hague is seen as the grassroots favourite to take over as leader. Among MPs, though, there appears to be no clear front-runner. It leaves the possibility that while the 800 or so senior constituency activists would vote for one leader, the parliamentary party would choose another. The reasons for delay are not just to do with questions over who should vote. After just losing the election, one of the region's new intakes says the decision is being forced too soon.
This will probably be the most important vote I cast in the next 5 years, because our chances of winning many parliamentary votes, given the current majority, are pretty slim. And frankly, I would rather not have to make this choice within 2 weeks of becoming an MP.
Others simply won't be voting. Theresa Gorman was one of those who campaigned for John Redwood in the last leadership contest. This time she won't be bothering. She says the leadership contest with the current list of candidates is really an irrelevance.
You need someone who has telly appeal, who has public appeal, who the public can relate to.
Theresa Gorman.
And modesty forbids me to say that I've got anybody in mind at the moment, but someone could emerge. But I think we're choosing at the moment for the wrong reasons. The job is not open for a future Prime Minister, and possibly not for 10 years unless we get this 5 years right. And it's no good us putting up someone who we think is wonderful if the folks out there think is a retread, carrying a lot of baggage from the debacle of the last cabinet.
Most Tory MPs will nevertheless be voting in the first ballot on June the 10th. Being in opposition means there won't be the same international media interest as the last Tory leadership contest. But the result will be just as important if the Conservative Party is to have any chance of uniting before the next election.
A Billericay stalking horse, you heard it here first. Well, joining me now to discuss the problems facing the party, John Strafford, chairman of the Campaign for Conservative Party Democracy and former chairman of the Beaconsfield Conservative Association. And from our Oxford studio, the Conservative MEP for Hampshire North and Oxford, Graham Mather. Graham Mather, some might say that your enthusiasm for widening the franchise is partly based on your fears that this is turning into a bit of a Eurosceptical leadership campaign. Even Stephen Dorrell making much of his concerns about the way Europe is developing.
No, well, that's certainly not the case. Anyone who's integrated with the party knows that our real problem is that our activists feel disconnected from the colleagues at Westminster, and they think that Westminster MPs behaved very badly over the last 2 or 3 years. They showed great indiscipline, and now they're showing enormous complacency in thinking they can choose a leader without involving every level of the party, and that clearly ought to involve party workers, constituency chairmen, MEPs and peers. We're not talking about anything to do with particular wings or factions. What we're talking about is building a modern Conservative Party that will work instead of an old-fashioned one which has come to the end of its run.
And yet you've heard from so many MPs, certainly we heard during the election campaign and before, that many of them regard their activists as actually being comparatively Eurosceptic, maybe further away from public opinion on this issue, so that you might actually be endangering your own position.
No, my experience is that our grassroots activists have enormous political intelligence. If we listen to them rather more, we as a party do better. When the party tends to go wrong, it's when ministers get cocooned in Whitehall, when they listen to civil servants, when they lose that contact with the people who put them there in the first place. We have to rebuild our party, revigorate those activists, get more professional agents, and above all, choose better parliamentary candidates. And unless our colleagues in Westminster show they're serious about that, then we're going to have a very rough and tough couple of years.
John Strafford, they are serious about that, aren't they? They've said that there isn't time to make the changes now for this contest, but that for future contests there will be a full review of the rules, and doubtless that will lead to some involvement for ordinary party members.
The trouble is, the parliamentary party has said this on many occasions in the past, and they said last summer that they were going to change the rules immediately after this general election. And it didn't happen. We're used in the voluntary party to be trodden on by the parliamentary party, and we're now fed up with having that situation. It's time for the voluntary party to stand up and be counted. We have now got to move towards a national Conservative Party constitution in which each member's got a vote, and just accepting crumbs from the table of the parliamentary party is not acceptable anymore. We've got to have a training programme, if you like, an educating Archie programme, educating Sir Archibald Hamilton that the days of deference are dead, and we're now moving towards the 21st century. And I hope that at this coming party conference in October, the voluntary party will stand up and it will start asking for those things to be involved, because that's the way we can rebuild the party. Graham Mather's absolutely right. If you want to involve people, if you want to increase our membership and reverse the decline, then we've got to allow them to participate.
But is the danger not that you find yourself in the position that the Labour Party was in the early 1980s, that the activists seize power and that the consequence is a shift of the party away from what the public want to hear, and that the next election you suffer an even bigger defeat?
Well, that's a very interesting parallel, because one of the disadvantages we have by not being a democratic party is that we can't turn the spotlight on the Labour Party, because the Labour Party is also highly undemocratic. It is a party of vested interests. The trade unions still have 50% of the votes, and we're not able.
One member, one vote is that.
But only one member, one vote for 50%. And what the parliamentary party are putting forward for the Conservative Party is follow Labour. Well, we don't want to do that. We want to create a modern party, a party for the next century, in which every member's got a vote, and those votes are equal to the member of Parliament. Why should somebody who's spent their life loyally supporting the Conservative Party have a vote only 1/5000th value of that of an MP who's been there for 3 weeks? It is a nonsense, and it's time to be changed.
Graham Mather, what, in terms of your danger, your view, is the risk if the parliamentary party is seen to elect somebody who the rest of the party is not seen to support? I mean, we hear there's going to be a poll of constituency chairman, which will be published on the morning of the first ballot next month. Now, if that comes out one way and the result comes out the other, what are the implications for the party?
The implications are very serious. We effectively have two leaders. We've had the voluntary party express itself. The parliamentary party may then vote in another direction. That is a recipe for instability and chaos. Let's take it a little bit forward towards the party conference. If the parliamentary party are still, by that time in October, sending signals that they aren't really interested in the grassroots, we can expect a very rough party conference. It's almost the opposite of the point you made a moment or two ago. The Labour Party had trouble at its conferences before it had modernised its system. When a lot of people felt they weren't plugged in, then they behaved rather badly on the conference floor. Once the Labour Party modernised, once it gave every member a vote, they were able to impose a discipline. They were able to involve members in policy making, and they became more professional. If we can't do that, we face the risk of a sort of Bennite Conservative Party conference.
All right, I want to finally and briefly bring in John Strafford. The chairman of West Berkshire Conservative Association has written John Major saying, if the party doesn't change, it's doomed. Do you agree?
Absolutely. We cannot any longer allow a situation where the membership has been hemorrhaging over many years. From 2.8 million in 1951, it's gone down to 200,000 today. We must change, and then we can look forward to rebuilding the Conservative Party.
John Strafford, Graham Mather, thank you both very